So it seems like the truth of the matter is, despite making a career as a hardened assassin that was running an orphanage built to create the most cold-blooded killer in existence, Ando was unable to fight the instinctual urge within him of being a father. It's something you hear about all the time, right? Across all different types of parents, mothers, fathers alike. Before a child is born, your thought process is only really considering you and all the things that you need to survive and make yourself happy. But sometimes, and I say sometimes because it really is a good 90%, because there are some terrible, shitty parents out there. So I'm not gonna act like every single person under the sun has this instinctual, chromosome in their brain. But 9 times out of 10, when a child is born, something in that parent's brain is going to click in their brain chemistry the moment that they lay their eyes on the child that is usually their own blood. Holding your infant for what is the very first time, watching them grow from a helpless baby into a competent child and even adult. It's something that is ingrained in the minds of mostly all humans, whether they really choose to let it awaken or lie dormant. Sometimes it just comes out. And it seems this is exactly what took over Ando and made him kidnap Shin from Alkmaar in the first place. Also, Ando could save Shin from a life of torture and pain and violence. This is what made Ando drop Shin off with Dr. Azakura, where he knew Shin would be safe and potentially have no chance of being an assassin. He'd probably be a scientist. Unfortunately, that did not go the way he planned, but regardless, Ando, at least subconsciously, cared about Shin. Despite overall in the last chapter we see he regrets that decision of saving Shin. The inner turmoil that's going on within Ando is a direct consequence of his original personality, the non-parent, living on his own his entire life as a hitman personality, and that is conflicting with his, again, the instinctual desire to protect one's child. Everything in Ando's subconscious is telling Ando that it was a mistake to save Shin, and his life is so much worse off now that he's did this. Even being willing to point a gun at his own son because he believes that killing Shin might absolve him of that kind of regret that he feels. And of course, right before Ando is able to succeed in killing Shin, Sakamoto and Akari arrive at the perfect time and stop Ando from taking that shot. Once the gun is loose and slides across the floor though, the gun ends up in Shin's hands, and he's pointing it at his dad. As he points the gun at his dad that was moments away from taking Shin's life just a moment ago, this is the moment that Shin realizes he might have to kill his dad. Getting thrown overboard, having Akari throw anchors at Shin and choke the fucking ever-living life out of him, none of that was enough for Shin to realize his dad might not give a damn. But his dad pointing a gun at Shin was finally enough to have Shin turn around his motions and turn against his father. Now, most likely, this is because Shin was able to realize that through reading Ando's mind, Ando was pretty serious about pulling that trigger there. Whereas before, there was still all of that plausible deniability. Maybe Ando's just playing hard to get, or he's putting on a front and he doesn't want to actually admit his feelings. No, he was about ready to pop a cap in your ass. And as Shin holds the gun, Ando is egging him on, acting like if Shin kills Ando, the bomb's just gonna go off and all of the people on this cruise ship are going to die. And Ando specifically brings up Dr. Azakura, the person that he left Shin with, and said, if this cruise ship goes down, sinks with both of us on it, what is Dr. Azakura gonna think? The point that Ando's making isn't even that Azakura failed to take care of and protect Shin, but it's because Shin's troublemaking ended up leading him right back to Ando, and now they're both dead because of it. Regardless of how Shin currently feels in his teenage angsty mind about everyone hating his ESP and they don't want him around, bringing up Dr. Azakura and how he would feel about everything going on triggers Shin beyond belief because, again, as a kid, even though he has his own hatred and feelings on the matter, it is a lot of childish nonsense. At the end of the day, in the back of his brain, he knows Dr. Azakura cares about him. He knows Dr. Azakura wants nothing but the best for Shin, which is why saying this angers the hell out of him. There is always a part of Shin that will love and appreciate Dr. Azakura for taking care of him. But Shin's inexperience and very angry emotions lead to him accidentally pulling the trigger just out of anger, putting a bullet right in Ando's shoulder and dropping him to the floor instantly. Now, unfortunately, this wasn't actually what Shin was trying to do. He was actually just trying to make Ando get scared and make him apologize because, again, childish brain was still thinking that he could turn the situation around and leave the ship with his dad loving him at the end of this. Shin let his anger get the best of him in that moment. which just reveals how truly childish and immature as a kid he is at this moment. However, funnily enough, I guess it really wasn't that childish for Shin to think, because it is revealed that just like a part of Shin cares about Dr. Azakura, as we talked about earlier, a part of Ando that he can't shove down still cares about his son. The instinctual parental reflex to protect your kid, no matter how much internally he disagrees with that instinct. In an attempt to get revenge on Ando, Ikari runs at Shin and throws her anchor directly at him. Meanwhile, as Ando is bleeding out on the floor, he's pondering all of the irony that has to exist for spending 13 years or more on the run from the JAA, doing everything he could to stay off their trail, just for the kid that he saved, again, the reason that he was on the run from the JAA in the first place, to eventually find him and take his life. For 13 years, Ando was in exile, believing none of this was actually worth it. And you know what? Maybe he should have just let Shin die. Yet, at the same time, Ando's body moves on its own, jumping right in front of Akari's attack and taking the blow right to the back in order to save Shin and push him out of the way. And while Akari is rightfully confused why her ally just betrayed her, Sakamoto slams her into the ground before she can even comprehend what's going on. But it seems like, of all people in this four-person group, Ando is the most confused as to why he protected his son, which makes Shin yell at Ando and ask why he would even bother to do something like that, especially after he's tried to kill him at least 3 times now. To which Ando admits there just has to be something wrong with his brain, even though we know exactly what this is. And as life begins to slip from Ando, he actually starts to chuckle and laugh. He puts his hand to the bullet wound that his son gave him and insults his son for his poor aim, admitting it's probably a good thing that he saved him from Alkamar, because he would have made a piss-poor hitman, which almost awakens like a brief moment of lucidity within Ando and has that parental aspect of his personality take over for just a brief moment, because as he's kind of beginning to lose consciousness, with his last amount of strength, he takes his son by the shoulder and gets one last good look at Shin before he collapses. For a moment, not out loud, but in his mind, taking pride in just how big Shin has grown since the little infant child that he dropped off with Dr. Azakura all those years ago. And of course, for Shin, who can read minds, this is devastating. Even more so because Ando decided to keep that to himself. He wasn't able to say it out loud, when honestly, hearing that sentence out loud probably is all Shin could have ever wanted out of this interaction. It pulls at Shin's heartstrings and makes him think that his father actually did care right at this last moment, which is just so abusive for Shin mentally, because going back and forth like that really would fuck someone up. And thankfully, he had a role model like Sakamoto to take him under his wing after all of this and lead him as a guiding person, because Shin probably would have been a very fucked up individual after this. He probably would have ended up where he did after killing Tenkyu 10 years earlier. As Sakamoto goes to try and disarm the bomb that's rigged to sink the cruise ship, the hitman tells Shin to stay with Ando, as this could realistically be the final moments that Shin ever gets to spend with his dad. However, it is revealed that despite all of the lost blood, Sakamoto shows Shin that Ando is still alive, still conscious, and could potentially survive. If Shin is able to stay and apply pressure to the wound, he might be able to save him. However, with his final breaths, Ando asks Shin to please just go and help Sakamoto. Ando will give him the location of the bomb, make it easier for them to find. He promises he'll hold on long enough for Shin and Sakamoto to make their way back. Whether this is, again, all of the blood and the loss of his life making Ando realize what's important to him, or he is just conning Shin one last time so that way he can get away and escape while they're gone, who knows. Shin does agree and saunters off to go help Sakamoto. And until next chapter, we may never know if Ando was being sincere and really wants to let his son go off and make a better life for himself, or if, you know what, he's just taking this opportunity to run away. However this little mini story does end, I'm extremely happy about getting the Alkamar reveal for Shin, as well as some decent character interactions between Ando and Shin, because Yuto Suzuki, in my opinion, is great at making these flashbacks have such a large impact to the story, and it genuinely does blow my mind that apparently a lot of people in the Sakamoto Days community don't like the flashback arcs, and they're the most hated and least favorite arcs of the entire story, which, like, blows my mind. I mean, go on social media. People will genuinely believe that Uzuki and Akao's backstory was the worst part of Sakamoto, and it has been nothing but terrible since. I mean, sheesh. I love that. People really are truly divided on what they like sometimes, but as long as I'm enjoying it, I'm going to keep making content about it and talking about it. So genuinely, I appreciate you guys making it this far into the video. If you have, hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss any future content on Sakamoto Days or any other series you may read weekly. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.